Dorothy was curled up on a dirty mattress, feeling too weak to eat. For 3 days, she hadn't been able to bring herself to approach the garbage bins where the homeless gathered in the evenings to scavenge for food. From a distance, she watched with a shudder as they joyfully dug through the depths of the grimy bins, pulling out packets and containers with leftover scraps of food before settling down nearby to devour their finds with gusto. I can't do it, Dorothy thought to herself. I'm not one of these wretched people. If my parents could see what I've become, hot tears scorched her cheeks. She was wrapped in an old, stretched-out sweater that hung off her like a hanger, but it provided some protection from the night chill. Just a few days ago, I had everything, she thought bitterly. A home, a business inherited from my parents, money, and social standing. And now I'm huddled in a dirty makeshift shelter that the builders left behind. God, she prayed, clasping her hands together, please help me. Don't let me perish from the cold. I haven't done anything to offend you. Suddenly, Dorothy heard the sound of a car pulling up. She cautiously peeked out of her hiding place and saw a luxurious car stop near the garbage bins. A distinguished-looking man got out and took 2 garbage bags out of the trunk. He placed them carefully by the bins and drove off. Dorothy hesitated for a moment, afraid that the owner might change his mind and come back. Then she rushed to them, grabbed them, and somehow found the strength to drag them into her corner. Gasping for breath, she inspected her loot and opened the first package. "Dear Mother," she exclaimed, and with trembling hands opened the second. "Oh my God," the girl raised her eyes to the sky. "Thank you, you heard my prayers." Dorothy, dressed in black, stared apathetically at the grave mound under which her parents had found their final resting place. Familiar and unfamiliar people approached her, expressing condolences, but she still couldn't believe that her parents were no longer there. Dorothy was the only child in the family. Her father had managed to establish a successful business that was supposed to be passed down to his son, but unfortunately, the couple only had one daughter. The girl did not disappoint her father and became a worthy heiress, receiving a good education. Just a few days ago, they talked about trivial matters and made plans for vacation, but those plans were not meant to be. An accident took both of their lives, leaving the woman alone. If it hadn't been for her husband, who supported her throughout the mourning ceremony, she probably would have fallen into despair. "Let's go," said Mark as he carefully hugged her by the shoulders. "Everyone has already left. It's time to go home. You're shaking all over." "Yes, yes," Dorothy replied as if awakening from a trance. "Let's go home. I'm tired and I want to be alone. Thank you for being here." Mark helped his grief-stricken wife into the car and drove her home. He sympathetically glanced at her in the rearview mirror, but said nothing, seeing that she wasn't in the mood for conversation. They arrived at their home half an hour later, and Mark helped her out of the car and opened the front door for her. "My dear, you can't torment yourself like this," he said. "You can't change anything now." He gently undressed her and led her into the living room. "Think about yourself. You'll have to learn to live without them." Dorothy sat at the living room table for a long time, with a photo of her smiling parents in the center staring back at her. "My dear," her husband called out, "enough sitting, you need to sleep. Who will it help if you get sick?" He approached her, picked her up as if she were small, and carried her into the bedroom. Mark met Dorothy at a friend's birthday party. She noticed that the handsome young man couldn't take his eyes off her all evening but was too shy to approach her. "Who is he?" the girl asked the hostess of the party. "What, do you like him?" she laughed. "That's Mark. He's a very promising young man. He's not from our circle. His family isn't wealthy, but he's very intelligent and considerate. I recommend taking a closer look at him. He would make the perfect husband." That evening, Mark finally mustered the courage to approach Dorothy. "May I have this dance?" The young man gallantly bowed before the girl. She gave him her hand and accepted the invitation. "I see you're alone here. Where's your companion?" he asked. "Unfortunately, a worthy one hasn't been found. Dorothy playfully smiled at her partner. Someone I would want to share this evening with. If I had even one chance in 1,000 to accompany you tonight, I wouldn't allow you to be bored for anything. Such a beautiful girl just can't stay alone for long. Dorothy laughed. She enjoyed the attention men. The candid flattery was naive and artless, but it didn't repel her. My name is Mark, he introduced himself. And you're Dorothy. I couldn't resist and asked my friend for the name of the girl I liked. He watched her eyes attentively, noticing how the smile touched her lips, and he smiled back. Finally, the sadness has left your gray eyes. You move well. Have you danced before? A girl from a wealthy family has all kinds of schools behind her: art, music, dance, of course, knowledge of foreign languages, and a good education. My father dreamed of an heir, but instead, I was born. Your future husband will be lucky, Mark dreamily said. It's rare to come across intelligent women nowadays. The music had stopped, but the young couple didn't leave each other's side. The boy suggested a walk in the garden. The evening was quiet, and they hid away in a gazebo to escape curious eyes. Maybe I wouldn't want to know so much, but I have to live up to my status. After all, someday I'll have to deal with the family business. My dad reminds me of that regularly, the girl said. No way, the boy exclaimed playfully. A real man will appear by your side and take on all your worries. Didn't I tell you that I can predict the future? He looked foolishly up at the sky. I see that you'll soon fall in love with a blue-eyed, dark-haired, tall man with a good build and no bad habits. The described character looks surprisingly like you. Dorothy took a flower that had appeared out of nowhere in her new acquaintance's hands. The boy held her hands to his chest. Can you hear my heart beating? You conquered me from the first minute. I don't want to part with you like this. He brought her hands to his lips. That evening, Mark walked Dorothy home, and she was pleasantly surprised that he didn't even attempt to kiss her. The girl was enchanted by him. Sweetie, her mother greeted her in the living room. You're positively glowing. Are you in love? Who is he? Her father inquired. Do we know his parents? Before he becomes a part of our family, I'd like to know as much as possible about him. No, Daddy. Dorothy kissed her parents and spun around the room, still under the influence of her conversation with the boy. His parents aren't rich, but he's just... She hugged her mother. And you're not snobs? You won't make me marry someone from our circle, will you? You'll live with him, her father said sensibly. I've only known him for a few hours, but it feels like I've been waiting to meet him my whole life. I don't want to think about anyone else. Do you believe in love at first sight? For us, the most important thing is for you to be happy. Just don't rush it. Look at him closely. If he loves you for who you are and not your money, we won't object and will bless your marriage, her father replied. Your father is right, her mother agreed. You have to choose with your heart. We'll be happy to welcome him into our family as long as you're happy, dear. Oh, mother, thought Dorothy, wrapped in someone else's old clothes, picked up from a dumpster and trying to protect herself from the night chill in an unheated construction trailer. If only you had taught your knave daughter to listen not only to her heart, but also to her head, I wouldn't have to be lying here on this dirty mattress right now. How could you, with all your life experience, not see through this person? Not that I blame you. You sincerely believed in my family's well-being. The woman tried to forget her troubles with a troubled sleep, but memories brought her back to a time when she was truly happy. Dorothy was struggling with the loss of her parents. She had never been particularly interested in business matters before, but now, devastated by grief, she had completely entrusted all the responsibilities to her husband. She stopped leaving the house, spent whole days in her father's office, didn't answer calls from friends, and nothing seemed to matter to her anymore. Darling. Mark, dressed in a dark suit and in a lifted mood, his black hair neatly styled, and his blue eyes sparkling, approached his wife, kissed her. Did you sleep badly again? Look at yourself. You're not taking care of yourself at all. You can't keep torturing yourself like this. It's been 6 months. and you still can't come to terms with the loss of your parents. Who benefits from you crying from morning till night, not showing up at the office? Pull yourself together. Life goes on. Your father wouldn't be pleased with your current state. He hoped you would continue his work, not fall into depression. Mark. Dorothy's eyes filled with tears as she spoke. I want to hand over control of the company to you. I still don't understand anything about it. You handled everything when we were with your father. It's the right thing to do, especially now that I don't have the strength to run the business. I'm sorry for burdening you with this, but your father, the man protested, wanted you to be in charge of everything. I can't disobey his wishes. Besides, it's written in the will. Maybe we shouldn't rush into this. You'll come around and understand the business, and I'll help you. Mark, my love, I trust you, the woman said sadly. You're a man, and you're already handling all of my affairs, but with my knowledge, I want to transfer everything to you so you can handle everything without hesitation. How foolish of me. Where were my eyes? Dorothy snapped out of her memories and back to reality. How could I not see the deception in my husband's words and actions? How could I not notice the traps he set for me? I handed over the keys to the business that my father built and protected for me to this greedy man. I didn't sense that he only needed me for my money. He was so cunning in his plan that he was able to enrich himself at our expense and take everything that my family had, the business, the real estate, the money, everything, and make himself the sole owner with the help of the people he hired using my money. And then Dorothy burst into tears. Mark, why did you take so long? Asked the wife petulantly, hearing the front door slam. She was sitting on the couch in the living room, reading a book with her shoulder-length hair loose and wearing a soft, cozy pajama. She looked very touching amidst the rich decor of the living room. I was already getting ready to go to sleep, and it's not right. Husbands and wives should go to bed at the same time. After all, they have things to do in bed together. Hurry up and get undressed. I missed you. Let's go to the bedroom, my poor dear, tired husband. She approached the man, wrapped her arms around his neck, and wanted to kiss him, but Mark squeezed her wrists painfully and took a step back. From today on, we are no longer husband and wife, he said, looking at the woman with disgust. And besides, I am now the owner here and don't want any outsiders in my house. Mark, is this some kind of joke? Dorothy looked at her husband in disbelief. It's not funny. No, it's not a joke. Mark took out some documents from his briefcase and threw them on the coffee table. My dream has come true. I am rich. This is my house. He spread his arms, smiling contentedly. Only mine, and you have no place here. What do you mean, your house? Dorothy protested. This is actually my parents' house. It was inherited by me. I don't want to offend your ego, but you have nothing to do with this house. I don't understand why you even started this conversation. You're mistaken, Mark sneered. You transferred all your property and business to me. Now I own everything, but you have nothing to do with it. What are you trying to say? I don't understand what's going on. Fear crept into the woman's heart. Explain it clearly. Why are you scaring me? I don't want to hear anything. Stop it immediately. Do you want to make me angry? You succeeded. How could it happen that you own everything? It's simple, Mark replied, sitting on the couch without undressing and crossing his legs. I transferred all your inheritance to myself. You have nothing now. You're destitute. But I gave you permission to manage our affairs while remaining the owner of the business. We both can make decisions. After all, we are husband and wife. Yes, but nothing connects us anymore. You're not my wife. He pulled out his passport and showed the divorce stamp. So all property and business belongs to me, and you don't have a penny to your name. I did not agree to the divorce, Dorothy said, looking into her husband's cold blue eyes. You could not have divorced me. No one needs the other party's agreement. If you have a lot of money, Mark said, rising abruptly, and I have plenty of it now, get out. I don't want to see you anymore. You have no idea how long I've been waiting for this moment to throw you out the door. I'm tired of being a stepson. You can't do this to me, Dorothy screamed. Say it's a joke, a cruel, but still a joke. Stop it now. Nobody considered you a stepson. My parents sincerely loved you as their son. So much that they left everything to you, Mark shouted angrily. Although I was the one running the business, I was planning to become the head of the company, not your errand boy. They just didn't have time to change the will. Dorothy tried to reason with her husband. You can't just get rid of me like this. I loved you. He laughed, and there was so much mockery in that laughter that Dorothy realized her husband was not joking. Never. Hear me out. I never loved you. I needed your money from the first minute. I realized you knew nothing about business, and it would be easy to manipulate you, except for your daddy. And then, such luck, a car accident. I realized I was in control. You transferred everything to me by your own will. You didn't want to get involved in the business intricacies and preferred to mourn your deceased parents. And then all I needed was a divorce. I had no problems with that at all. Great, I got everything I wanted. If this is not a joke, Dorothy resisted her husband's rudeness. Let me at least change my clothes. I can't go out in my pajamas. How can I appear like this? She felt that she was about to lose control of herself and would soon break down. She couldn't understand how her husband could treat her like this. After all, there are personal things that I want to take with me, documents. I can't even get a job without my passport. I would like to have some money, at least for the time being. I'm not interested in your desires. There's nothing here that belongs to you. It's all mine, understood? He pushed her towards the exit. Get out. You won't get a penny from my house. Now you can feel what it's like to be poorer than a church mouse. For God's sake, you can't throw me out on the street like this. Who will stop me? Your daddy? He sarcastically laughed. Ha, he's not here. Nobody will help you. Finally, I will do what I've been dreaming of for a long time. Get out. You have no right to be in my house. He pushed the frightened Dorothy out onto the street and closed the door behind her. Be grateful that I allowed you to leave on your own and didn't call the police and accuse you of breaking into someone else's house. I could have had you thrown in jail. Don't thank me, but leave. No one would believe you. Everyone in the neighborhood knows whose house this is. When you have money, you can buy any witness. I don't have to resort to extreme measures. Go away. Today, even your tears won't help you. A woman stood at the doorstep of the house her father had built, dreaming of living in a big, happy family. What happened to us? She thought. Why did Mark treat me so cruelly? He took advantage of my helplessness. How did I give my heart to the wrong person? I'm so stupid, she scolded herself. Dorothy trudged down a dark alleyway, crying. I won't be able to regain my father's business and prove that Mark is a fraud who took advantage of me. After all, I willingly signed the documents and gave up what I had. Even if I file a police report, they won't accept it without my passport. What should I do? Who can I turn to for protection? Daddy, how I miss you. You would have put this scoundrel, my now ex-husband, in his place. No one can help me except you, but you're gone and I'm alone and don't know where to go. Her feet led her to an abandoned construction trailer. No one had been there for a long time, and a dirty, dusty mattress lay in the corner. It wasn't what she was used to, but the exhausted and worn-out woman had no other choice. She sat on the mattress, curled up into a ball, and closed her eyes. It's okay, she thought as she drifted off to sleep. Tomorrow, I'll go home. Maybe Mark just wanted to teach me a lesson, although I don't understand what for. But for now, I'll stay here. The morning is wiser than the evening. Dorothy's nerves were stretched thin, and she couldn't sleep for a long time, but exhaustion finally took over. The coolness of the morning woke Dorothy up. Autumn was approaching. Her pajamas were not the most suitable clothes to be seen in public. The woman got up, stretched her legs, which had become stiff from the uncomfortable position she slept in, and headed towards home. She looked around from time to time, trying not to bump into anyone familiar. Dorothy was embarrassed to be walking around in her pajamas. She hoped that her husband had come to his senses overnight, and, at the very least, would allow her to retrieve her belongings. She rang the doorbell, and it immediately opened, as if Mark had been waiting for her to come. "What do you want?" Mark sneered at Dorothy from the doorway. "Mark." Dorothy shifted her weight from foot to foot. Her voice trembled from the cold, and the sharp wind cut through her silk pajamas. "Can't we just calm down? I don't know what you were trying to prove, but let's end it here. Please, let me go inside and get my things." "Get out of here," Mark spat. "This is my house, and everything in it is mine. There are no things for you to take. Did you really think I would change my mind overnight? We have nothing to talk about." "Why are you doing this? My family has never hurt you, and my father tried to teach you everything he knew. I don't understand what's happening. Can't you have any sympathy for me? I'm not trying to claim anything, but at least let me dress like a human being. I'm ashamed to be seen like this." "Go to the dump. You'll find plenty of suitable clothes there," Mark sneered at his ex-wife. "Get out of my house and never come back, or I'll call the police. You won't get anything from me anyway." He pushed Dorothy and slammed the door. Dorothy returned to her trailer, tears streaming down her face. At least she could shelter from the wind there. She curled up in a corner, hugging her knees, trying to warm herself up. Her stomach growled from hunger. "I have to wait until dark," she thought. "I can't wander around the city in my pajamas. The first patrol car will pick me up, and I don't have any documents. Or maybe I should really look for clothes by the dumpsters. People often leave unwanted things there. It's embarrassing, but I have no choice. Otherwise, I risk freezing to death. I have no other way if I want to find out the reason for my husband's strange behavior," she reassured herself. When it got dark, Dorothy ventured out of her hiding place and approached the dumpsters. There were a few bags lying around, and Dorothy found some clothes. They were worn and oversized, but still better than pajamas. She also found some old sneakers. Taking what she could carry, she covered the mattress. As she rummaged through the bags, she noticed a loaf of bread lying on top of the garbage pile. Her stomach stuck to her back from hunger. "No," Dorothy thought, shuddering. "I can't take that bread, not for anything. I'll go to my friend's tomorrow. She'll definitely help, and I'll endure it for today." Her stomach was tormenting her with violent hunger pains. "Yes, I'm listening," she heard her friend's sleepy voice. "Iron," the woman said, worriedly. "It's Dorothy. Let me in. I need to talk to you." "Dorothy," exclaimed the other woman in surprise. "What happened? Why are you dressed like that?" She saw confusion and disdain in her friend's eyes. "That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Please open the door. It's uncomfortable standing outside. It's cold here." "What do you want from me?" "Well, you see," Dorothy rushed to speak, "Mark and I had a fight. He won't let me into the house." "And what do you want from me? I don't have any money. You know that I'm living on my father's charity." "Maybe you can lend me some of your things and a little money. I haven't eaten anything since yesterday." "He didn't even leave you a card?" "No, he threw me out in my pajamas." "Oh, I see." The woman fell silent. "Excuse me, Dorothy," she suddenly spoke in a condescending tone. "This isn't a charity here. I don't give out money, and I don't want rumors circulating that I'm hanging out with homeless people. I can't let you come to my house in this state. I'm sorry, I don't have time to talk to you. I'm in a hurry to get to the beauty salon. I have no desire to listen to your complaints about your husband in the evening. I didn't hire you as my friend. Don't come to me anymore." She hung up the phone. "Iron, we're friends." Dorothy tried to shout after her, but there was only silence in response. How could this happen? The woman was upset and crushed. "We've been friends for so many years, and I've helped her so many times, but now when I need help, she just took me out of her life. What am I supposed to do?" Dorothy thought. As she turned, she accidentally saw the police station sign. "That's where I need to go." She was happy. "They'll definitely help me." She opened the door resolutely. "Hey, homeless person. A young surgeon at the entrance called out to her, "Where are you going?" "Why do you allow yourself to insult me?" the woman protested. "You don't know anything about me." "I don't need to know anything. Go away, get some sleep." "But I don't drink. I need help." "We know you," the surgeon chuckled. "Can't get enough of the bottle, can you? Well, I don't serve in the morning. I need to recover some documents. My husband took them from me. And you have a husband too. Well, go to him then. No need to loiter here." "How dare you talk to me like that? I need help. Who can I turn to?" "Listen," the young man looked at the persistent visitor threateningly. "Get out of here before I put you in jail for 15 days. Sort out your family problems yourself. If she stays here to write statements, she's so clever. There's enough investigation without you. Go away." He grimaced in disgust, took Dorothy by the elbow, and led her to the exit. "The whole room stinks. It's disgusting to even touch you. Go nicely. Don't make me use force." The surgeon pushed her out onto the street. "Oh God," she prayed to herself. "Help me survive. Nobody wants to help me. I can't even get justice from the police, but I won't give up. Just help me. Show me where to go next." So with these thoughts racing in her mind, Dorothy returned to the trailer on the street. It was getting dark, and she saw that some boxes had been put outside a nearby shop next to the garbage bins. The woman approached hesitantly, looking around, and saw containers with salads, bread, and other items. Forgetting her pride, she grabbed whatever she could find and returned to the trailer. After catching her breath, she opened them and was stunned. Both bags were filled with clothes suitable for her size, shoes, and toiletries. She felt tears rolling down her face, and her heart was filled with gratitude. "Thank you, God," she whispered. "You are watching over me." She felt a sense of hope that she hadn't felt in a long time, and she knew that this was just the beginning of her journey to reclaim her life. "Tomorrow I'll go and write a statement about the loss of my passport, and let him try to refuse me," she threatened, shaking her fist into the darkness. That night, Dorothy slept like a log. She wasn't hungry, and the excitement she had experienced left her numb to the cold. The next morning, she got herself ready and headed straight to the passport office. No one even thought of turning away the attractive, well-dressed young woman with neatly arranged thick brown hair and skillfully applied makeup. It was clear she was a stranger from high society. Exiting the stuffy office, Dorothy tilted her face towards the last warm rays of the sun and closed her eyes, inhaling the fresh, cool autumn air. She went to a pawn shop and pawned one of her chains. "I'm not doing anything wrong," she thought, paying the passport fee. "I'll return the money to the owner if necessary. I need the passport to get a job." She went to a store, bought a bottle of kefir and a fresh, crunchy roll. How lucky she was to have normal food instead of rummaging through a garbage bin. She savored every bite and sip of kefir as if it was the best food she had ever tasted. "God bless the person who gave me a chance to start over. I'll get my documents, rent a cheap room, and one day I'll sort out my ex-husband and take back everything he took from me, the business he fraudulently took over. And if I can't get it back, I'll earn even more money and bankrupt Mark, and I won't feel sorry for him at all. I'd rather destroy my father's business with my own hands than let it remain in the hands of that unworthy man." "Well, you're to blame yourself," whispered her inner voice. "You trusted him with the management of your father's business." "It's okay," she replied to herself. "There will be a silver lining. But I promise never to open up my heart to any man again." Ross Daniel was sitting in a meeting, listening to the client's wishes, taking notes, and waiting for the moment to close the deal. During such moments, he couldn't think of anything else, not even his phone, which had been ringing all day, could distract him from his work. Suddenly, the phone came to life, and a message appeared on the screen. "While you're making money, your wife is having fun with her lover." Then a photo came, and the man turned pale. His beloved wife, Julia, was in the arms of a stranger. "What the hell?" he thought. "This can't be true," and suddenly jealousy flared up inside him. Ross stood up and said, "I'm sorry, I have a small problem. I have to leave urgently. Can you finish without me? My deputy knows about the signing of the deal." "Mitchell," he addressed the young man who was making the presentation, "I know you won't let me down. I'll be back in a couple of hours." "Yes, I'll take care of everything, Ross. I hope nothing serious happened." Mitchell looked worriedly at his boss. "I don't know yet," Ross replied. Ross apologized and rushed out of the meeting room. The man hurriedly drove to the parking lot. "I need to make sure the photo is real," he thought as he got behind the wheel. The car took off. "I want to look into the eyes of the traitor. I want to hear what she can say in her defense. It's time to put everything in its place." He looked at the screen again, checking the address indicated in the message. After a few minutes, Ross stopped at the hotel and turned off the engine. He sat for a few minutes gathering his strength, then opened the door sharply and walked into the building. But what if the photo was sent to sabotage a profitable deal, and all I saw was photoshopped? He suddenly thought. Then I'll dig the earth, but I'll find out who benefited from it, and he'll answer for trying to tarnish my wife's honest name. Although Ross clenched his fists, the photo looked too real, so he decided to figure it out and approached the front desk. Smiling with half his lips, Ross said to the girl, "My wife has prepared a surprise for me and told me she'll be waiting for me in this hotel room." He recited the room number his wife had given him. "Could you please give me the key?" The girl didn't even bother to call the room to confirm if the new guest was expected, and instead handed him the key. "Would you like a bouquet of flowers in the room?" the receptionist offered. "Thank you, my boss will bring some," Ross lied, trembling with excitement. The girl shrugged but didn't object. He hurriedly made his way to the floor and stood hesitating outside the door before finally gathering the courage to enter. The first person he saw was the hapless lover, unabashedly walking around in his underwear and holding a bottle of sparkling wine, occasionally taking sips. Pleasant music was playing, and there was the sound of female laughter. Ross was stunned. "Emil, what are you doing here?" he asked as he walked into the room. The lover was speechless, trying to say something but only opening and closing his mouth soundlessly. "Oh no!" The treacherous wife rushed in, hastily pulling the covers up to her chin. "Ross, darling, this doesn't mean anything to me. It's not what you think." "And what was I supposed to think? It's all very clear. You didn't rent an expensive room just for tea." Ross grabbed his chest, trying to ease the pain. "Darling." Julia threw off the covers and rolled off the bed, running to her husband. "Are you okay?" "No, I'm not okay," Ross said slowly, pulling away from the traitor who realized she was standing in front of her husband in a semi-transparent red nightgown and quickly retreated, grabbing a blanket. "I feel bad because I've been fooled like a complete idiot all this time." He tried to calm his breathing. "Emil," he addressed the man still standing in his underwear with a bottle in hand. "You've been to our house. I trusted you. No family celebration passed without you. While I was away on business, you were tasked with looking after my wife, and you took advantage of my absence and slept with her. And you, Julia," he turned to his deceitful wife, "you claimed Emil was your cousin. You lied, and I had nothing against him, welcomed him into my home, catered to his every need. How could I have known? What kind of relative does that? I'd love to break your smug face." He made a move on his wife, "but I won't soil my hands by hitting him." "Go ahead," Emil interjected. He still hadn't dressed and was holding the bottle, "but it will come back to bite you." "I know, that's why I won't hit you. Violence won't solve anything, and I don't want to go to jail for scum like you. Defending a righteous cause or someone worthy is one thing, but there's nothing to protect here, no honor or integrity left. I'll make it easy for my unworthy wife." He grabbed Julia's purse, opened it, and took out the key to their apartment. "I don't want to see you in my house," he addressed her. "Stay in what you came in for your rendezvous with your lover." "Ross, my dear," the woman whined, wrapping herself in a sheet and reaching for her husband to kiss him. Don't be mad, it was a moment of weakness. I admit I'm a scumbag, but you're always away. If you want, I'll kick him out right now, and he'll never set foot in our happy home again." The keyword is were, Ross replied firmly. "We are no more, just like there is nothing of yours in my house. Everything was bought with my money. When we divorce, you won't get anything. You made your choice. I won't interfere with you and your lover. Goodbye, my friends," he added bitterly, heading towards the door. "Ross, you can't leave me," Julia exclaimed, realizing that her husband was serious. "You said you loved me. I'll die without you." "Without my money, you mean?" He turned around. "It's not my concern anymore. Let Emil provide you with a comfortable life." "Hey, Emil," he addressed the lover mockingly. "She adores expensive salons and clothing from the latest European collections." "Thank you. You don't even realize the favor you've done me. Adieu, my friends." He slammed the door and stood in the hallway, regaining his composure. Under the pretense of mockery, he concealed his despair. He felt so heavy-hearted that he wanted to howl. Ross barely lifted his feet as he returned to the hotel lobby, handed the keys to the administrator, and headed home. The receptionist watched him closely but didn't dare ask anything, sensing that the visitor was not in a state to answer questions. Ross couldn't remember how he got into his car, how he made it to his apartment, and only snapped out of it when he tried to insert the key into the lock. He entered, not turning on the lights or taking off his clothes, and threw himself onto the bed. He pounded his fists against the soft mattress until he was exhausted. Soon he fell silent, lying there trying to make sense of what had happened. "The woman I loved unconditionally deceived me," he thought. "I opened up my soul to her and she betrayed me. Did she ever love me, or was it all for money? My wife, for whom I was willing to do anything, led me on for so long. They had a good time at my expense. I never spared anything for her, and she never lacked anything. She never knew where the money came from. I worked like a slave, and she repaid me with ingratitude." He groaned in helpless anger at his gullibility. He had not expected the pain of separating from his unfaithful wife to be so intense. Ross turned onto his back, lying with his arms outstretched, staring aimlessly at the ceiling. The dark and agonizing emptiness that had taken hold in his heart, once filled with love, was now palpable. He closed his eyes and immediately imagined his wife's frightened face when she realized that her deceit had been uncovered, followed by the insistent ringing of the doorbell. Ross didn't move. He didn't want to see anyone. Then there was a pounding on the door, and he heard Julia's voice. Reluctantly, he got up and went to the hallway. "Ross," his wife pleaded, "open the door, please. I know you're home. Let me explain everything. Don't stay silent, I beg you. We're not kids anymore. I don't want the neighbors to hear us. Let me into the apartment." "Go away," Ross sharply replied. "We have nothing to talk about." "My dear," the woman's voice cracked with tears. "We were happy together. It was a mistake. Forgive me, I'm a weak woman. I couldn't resist Emil's charm. I admit I was foolish, but I didn't plan on staying with him. Believe me, but don't be so cruel, it doesn't suit you. I'll do anything you want, just forgive me. I'll even get down on my knees in front of you. I know you love me, forgive me." "I don't want to interfere with your happiness," the man said wearily. "And yes, it's uncomfortable in front of the neighbors. Leave. Besides, your screams can be heard throughout the entire building. Don't even think about coming back. I've made up my mind. You know me." Ross walked away from the door. He could hear Julia standing outside the apartment for a while, apparently hoping that her husband would relent, but then everything fell silent. "She's gone," he thought, went to the living room, and took a photo from the shelf. They were together, young, happy, smiling. Ross couldn't understand why God had punished him by sending him a treacherous wife. What had he done wrong in his life? He had wanted to build his own house and have children. He had been a fool to think that a simple girl from the province would be the perfect loving and caring wife. Julia had won his heart with her simplicity and unpretentiousness. There were so many wonderful girls around, but they seemed like empty shells to him, and he had hoped to realize the dream of an ideal family. How cruelly he had been mistaken. Under the guise of a sweet and modest girl, a soul of a greedy, calculating schemer was hidden. Ross approached the bar, poured a glass of wine, and drank it in one gulp. He sat in a cozy armchair in front of the fireplace, covered himself with a blanket, shivering from the emotions he had just experienced. In desperation, he leaned back and groaned, closing his eyes. The artificial flames in the electric fireplace did not calm him. The reddish tongues reminded Ross of the bloody wounds left on his heart by his wife's betrayal. "We used to love sitting in this chair, embracing and holding each other tightly," the man said regretfully, watching the dance of the flames behind the glass door of the fireplace. His voice echoed in the empty apartment. "We never felt cramped back then. We wanted to stay together for the rest of our lives and grow old together. And also, we dreamed of taking evening walks on the beach, holding hands, listening to the sound of the waves, admiring the sunset. But next to me, I saw a completely different person. She chose that scumbag who replaced me. She ruined my whole life, destroyed my belief in good, tender feelings." He closed his eyes again, and the memory of his first encounter with Julia flashed through his mind. Ross had come to his favorite cafe for a snack. He was a regular here, so the table where he usually had breakfast was always free. He settled in his usual place and looked around while waiting for the waiter. His attention was drawn to a girl who impatiently tried to tuck a disobedient strand of thick black hair behind her ear. The waves of her hair fell on her shoulders. The stranger was crying. She sobbed like a small child, gasping for air, her narrow shoulders jerking, unable to wipe away the large tears that rolled down her eyes, leaving a wet trail on her dress. Ross smiled. Such a sight would not leave anyone indifferent. He motioned to the waiter, pointing to the table where the stranger was sitting. He stood up, approached her, and sat down across from her without asking for permission. "Hello, my heart is filled with emotion when I see a girl crying," he said with a wide smile, trying to catch her attention. "Can I help you with something?" He whispered something to the waiter, and then studied his companion with interest. The girl looked at him with tear-filled eyes, intermittently wiping her already swollen nose with a paper napkin. It was so touching that Ross's heart skipped a beat. He was amazed that the stranger did not use any makeup, although she did not need it. Her expressive brown eyes were framed by long, fluffy, dark eyelashes, and her eyebrows were elegantly arched, the envy of any beauty. She definitely caught his attention. "I don't think you can help me," the girl replied, pursing her plump lips. "I failed my exams, and it's a total disaster. It's ruined all my dreams." Ross guessed that the girl was probably from the province, as there were no naive girls like her in the city. He decided to help the unlucky student, at least to support her. In the meantime, the waiter brought their order. "Have breakfast with me," Ross offered. "I don't have any money to pay for this." The girl looked hungrily at the table, where the waiter had set salads, pastries, and coffee cups. "I only have enough for a return ticket." He took her empty water glass. "Do you really think I would let a woman pay for a meal? What kind of men have you been dealing with?" Ross looked at her incredulously. "Eat and tell me in detail what happened to you." "By the way, my name is Ross. And you?" "My name is Julia," the girl blushed shyly. "It's a typical story," she sobbed again. "I couldn't pass my exams, and I have to take a leave of absence. I'll also be kicked out of the dormitory, so I have nowhere to live." "Don't you want to go back home?" Ross finished her thought. "Where to?" she exclaimed. "To the village? What am I supposed to do there? There are no jobs, no prospects. My mother is constantly suffering from a lack of money, and my father is drunk from morning till night. Their gardens are where I sit." She cut herself with the edge of her hand on her throat. "They made me work in the gardens since I was 5 years old. I dreamed of settling down in the city, finishing university, finding a decent job, and now—" She started crying again. Well, he interrupted her. "Stop being so negative. There are no hopeless situations. I'll think about how I can help you. How will you help me? Julia asked, wiping away her tears with a paper napkin. I have nowhere to live, and finding a job will take time. Even if a miracle happens, and I find a job somewhere, no one will rent me a room until I get my first paycheck. They gave me only 2 days to vacate my hostel room. You can stay with me temporarily, Ross unexpectedly offered. I live alone in a 4-room apartment. I only come home to sleep. We don't even have to see each other. No, his new acquaintance shook her head. I can't. It's indecent. If you're afraid that I'll hit on you, he smiled, noticing the girl blushing, you can rest assured. I won't make any advances if you don't want me to. Besides, all the bedrooms have locks on the inside. And I won't charge you rent, but you'll have to cook and clean the apartment for me. I'll also think about finding you a job. Deal? You're very kind to me, but Julia hesitated. I don't accept refusals, Ross said firmly, glancing at his watch. Listen, I don't have much time. Let me take you to the apartment now, show you everything, and give you the keys. Do you have a lot of things? No, the girl blushed again, just a small suitcase and a bag. Will you manage to move out of the hostel on your own? She nodded. Great, let's go. He took her to the apartment, showed her the room, gave her the keys, and left, leaving his new acquaintance in a state of confusion. In the evening, Ross returned home from work to find a clean apartment and a luxurious dinner. I was right about you, he exclaimed cheerfully, surprised by the set table. It looks delicious. Where did you learn to cook like this? He pulled out a bottle of wine from the bar and filled their glasses. Julia's eyes lit up with joy. She couldn't believe her luck. Just that morning, she had been feeling down, thinking she would have to go back home. But then a single and handsome man came along. She looked at him with interest, admiring his dark wavy hair, blue eyes, straight nose, well-defined lips, and a dimple on his stubborn chin. He was tall, athletic, and wore an expensive suit that fit him perfectly. Well, let's drink to our chance meeting, he said, looking at the girl, taking a sip of his drink, placing the glass on the table, and starting to eat. With closed eyes of pleasure, he savored the food. How delicious! I suggest we drink to brotherhood. He stood up, approached Julia, who also got up. Ross looked into her brown eyes and slowly kissed her, savoring the taste of her lips. He decided not to push too far and scare the girl away with his eagerness. He returned to his seat, leaving her in complete confusion. Now we've met, he said. Were you thinking about a job for me? The girl asked, overcoming her embarrassment. I haven't decided yet what to offer you, Ross replied. He had no idea what she could do in his company, but he couldn't abandon a new acquaintance in need. He definitely liked her. For now, how about taking care of the house, cleaning, washing, ironing my shirts, living here, and I'll give you a certain amount of money for personal expenses. How do you like my offer? When your academic leave is over, you can return to your studies. I agree, Julia exclaimed. The prospect of living with a wealthy and handsome man was alluring. She didn't need much, and the work was familiar. She secretly hoped to win Ross's heart. Women's intuition told her he wouldn't mind returning her affections. From that day on, Julia took care of the house, washing and ironing Ross's clothes, cooking him breakfast and dinner, and even preparing his lunch for work. Her sincere concern for him won Ross over. He couldn't resist and decided that she was the wife he had always dreamed of, beautiful, smart, and so domestic. Julia combined all the qualities that had always attracted him. Why don't you marry her if she's so wonderful? Asked Ross's closest friend as they relaxed in a bar after a week of work. Maybe you're right, the man responded thoughtfully. It's time for me to decide. I've had enough of being a bachelor, and I have the means to provide for a wife. I've achieved everything I wanted in life. It's time to think about an heir too, laughed his friend. You better make a move before someone else takes her from under your nose. And so, Ross made up his mind. One evening, he came home with a huge bouquet of flowers. "Julia," he said in an unusually solemn tone, "we only recently met, but I feel that you're the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. I'm no longer 18 years old, and I'm ready to take responsibility for a family. I'm taking this step consciously. Will you marry me?" Julia was taken aback by the sudden confession, but her feelings for him were sincere. "Ross, I've never met a man like you before. Of course, I'll marry you. I'm so happy that I walked into that cafe on that lucky day and met you. You were sent to me by fate. I'm not even upset that I had to leave university, because if I hadn't, I would never have met you." She was so sincere in her feelings for him that he never doubted the correctness of his choice. The man put a golden ring on her finger. "Oh," Julia exclaimed admiringly, looking at the gift. "It's beautiful. Thank you." She threw herself into her chosen one's arms, kissed him, and felt jubilant that everything was falling into place in her life. "Maybe I'll sound old-fashioned, but let's not have a big wedding," Ross suggested. "We'd be better off going on a honeymoon abroad wherever you want." "Yes, my love." Julia agreed to everything, as long as the fairy tale she accidentally stumbled upon would never end. The wedding was celebrated modestly in the circle of a few friends and relatives. "Julia, why didn't your parents come to the wedding?" asked the girl's mother-in-law. "I would have loved to meet them. Ross told me they are ordinary people, but that's wonderful. I would thank them for such a wonderful daughter." The bride blushed with joy. "Ross seems like a different person. I've never seen him so happy." "We have some small family problems that didn't allow them to come to the wedding," the girl replied evasively. She couldn't admit that she was ashamed to invite her rural parents to decent society. She knew her father would get drunk and, worse, cause a scene. And they didn't have proper clothes for such a celebration. "They will definitely come someday," she promised, trying to be restrained. After the wedding, Julia seemed like a different person. First, she stopped cooking. "Darling," Ross said, returning from work, and once again finding restaurant food on the table, "I missed homemade food. I've run around enough restaurants." "Oh, honey, I didn't have time. Don't be mad." The woman pouted, hugging him and deliberately opening her robe a little more to show off her seductive breasts. "I had to go to the beauty salon. You want your wife to be beautiful, don't you? Or are you sorry for the money I spend on myself?" "You're already beautiful." The happy husband smiled indulgently. "And you know I don't mind spending money on you, but I still prefer to eat what you cook. I forgot about everything in the world. I found myself some beautiful pants. They fit me so well that the salesperson in the boutique advised me to book a photo session. Will you give me money?" "Of course, darling." He took out a card from his jacket pocket and handed it to his wife. "I applied for this especially for you. Use it, don't deny yourself anything, but still be reasonable." "You're just wonderful." The woman clapped her hands and kissed her husband tenderly. By the way, Ross remembered, the bill from the cleaning company came. "Do we use their services?" "Yes, it was me who ordered them," Julia confessed. "I was sorry to ruin a manicure I just had. I don't want the skin on my hands to become wrinkled and saggy in old age. You see, why do I go to beauty salons and undergo various spa treatments? All to look attractive. I even signed up for yoga." "Didn't you used to do fitness?" asked Ross. "I still do it. I don't want to turn into an old woman. I stay in shape. All for you." These cleaning girls brought the apartment into order in half an hour, and I would have had to spend the whole day on it. "Come to me." Ross picked up his wife and carried her to the bedroom. "You are the most beautiful to me. Do whatever you want if it makes you happy. I have enough money for all your whims. I want to fulfill all your desires. I understand that you want to enjoy life while we don't have children, but I think it's time to think about an heir. What do you think?" "Oh, darling," Julia whispered, languishing in her husband's caresses. "I am so happy. How I love you. You're so. Ross was in a state of bliss. He was not interested in other women. He was bathing in the sea of joy that his wife gave him. It seemed that nothing could cloud their family happiness, but as usual, the fairy tale ended in a very unexpected way. Ross struggled to emerge from his memories. The apartment was dark. Only the soft glow of the fireplace cast shadows on the floor. I need to pack Julia's things, he thought. I don't want anything to remind me of her. He walked into the bedroom, opened the wardrobe, and began packing expensive branded items into trash bags. What is this? Ross retrieved a folder that was securely hidden under a dress. He opened it and turned pale. What a mess! She decided to leak information about my most lucrative deals to my competitors. I wonder who she's working for. Oh, there's also a phone. Let's see, an unknown number. A message. Wow. Ross went through the records and grew increasingly furious, his face tensing up. And here I was wondering why all our profitable contracts have been falling through lately, and we've had to settle for small ones. She was relaying every move I made to an anonymous listener, and judging by the dates, it's been going on for a long time. Everything makes sense now. The competitors knew what I was going to offer and countered with better deals. And not just that, they used my company's research. But what more did she want? I brought her out of the provinces, spared nothing, and it wasn't enough for her. Barely containing himself, Ross angrily tossed the last dress from the hanger into the bag. He got dressed, picked up the bags, and went outside. Without hesitation, he loaded them into his car and drove to the garbage dump. There you go, he said, placing the bags next to the bins. Someone will find these expensive clothes useful, but I don't want them in my house anymore. Satisfied, Ross got behind the wheel. That's it, my dear wife, he said to his reflection in the rearview mirror. Now it's time for the next step, to get you out of my heart. It won't be easy, but I'll manage. When Ross returned home, he put the folder with the documents in his briefcase. As for you, Mr. Unknown, I'll deal with you tomorrow. It's time to connect the dots and turn the evidence over to the police. Let them investigate the fraud. I won't let this go. And if Julia gets caught, I won't lift a finger to help her. Let her get what she deserves. A month had passed, and Ross was slowly getting back to himself after his breakup with his wife. He had filed for divorce and focused on his business. Things in the company were gradually improving, which made Ross happy. As he was working in his office, the door opened and his secretary Liz appeared. A girl came for an interview for the position of a lawyer. Shall I invite her? She asked. Yes, please do, replied Ross. He put his work aside and prepared to meet the next candidate. A pretty young woman with uncertain and fearful gray eyes appeared at the threshold. But that's understandable. She doesn't know whether I will hire her or not, thought Ross, carefully examining her from head to toe. Something in her appearance made him wary. He noticed a ring on her anonymous finger while she was handing in her resume. It looked very similar to the one he had given his ex-wife. It can't be. Ross shook his head, trying to shake off his thoughts. It wasn't exclusive. She could have bought a similar one. Is everything okay? The woman asked cautiously, noticing the businessman's strange reaction. Yes, replied Ross, snapping out of his thoughts. Everything is fine. You wrote that you used to work for your father's firm. Why do you want to work for me? My parents passed away, the woman replied quietly. Your father also had a construction company. Yes, I am very familiar with the specifics of construction work, Ross exclaimed in surprise. You even managed to win several legal cases. Well done. I think we'll work well together, Dorothy. Liz will help you with everything you need to get started. Come to work tomorrow. I am a very strict boss and do not tolerate lateness. Keep that in mind for the future. You may leave now. Dorothy was over the moon with happiness. Getting a job at a prestigious firm was incredibly difficult. She was warmly welcomed by the team. Within a week, Ross understood that she was a capable employee. During breaks, he watched her with interest as she didn't stare at her phone, but was always reading something. At the end of the workday, Ross turned to Dorothy and asked, "How are you? I need to urgently prepare a contract project. I will send you all the data. It may take a lot of time, but I need to draw up the contract quickly, otherwise the contract will go to another client." "How much time do I have?" Dorothy asked. "One day, maximum two. Can you stay after work? If necessary, will you be okay getting home late?" Ross asked. "Yes, I can stay," Dorothy replied without answering personal questions. Ross was pleasantly surprised that she agreed right away and didn't object or demand any additional conditions. 2 days later, he congratulated the team on the successful conclusion of a profitable contract, acknowledging Dorothy's excellent work. "We're in this together," Dorothy remarked, blushing as her colleagues congratulated her. "Thank you for appreciating my work." Ross enjoyed communicating with this woman of few words more and more, knowing almost nothing about her. "Lisa," he asked one day, unable to contain his curiosity, "do you know if she's married?" "I don't know," the secretary shrugged. "She doesn't discuss her personal life with anyone, but her passport stamp says no, she lives in a rented apartment." "I see," Ross said thoughtfully. Sometime later, Dorothy had to stay late again to finalize the contract. Ross stayed with her because the documents had to be sent to the client on the same day. "That's it," Ross exclaimed, tossing his pen aside and standing up, stretching his shoulders. "We need a break. I'm hungry and want to order pizza." "Do you like pizza?" he asked her. "I love it," she replied with a smile, "especially with mushrooms. If only there was also a cappuccino with cinnamon, I could stay here until morning." "Our tastes coincide," Ross happily noted. He quickly ordered food delivery. "I notice that you read during breaks. What do you like to read, if it's not a secret?" "Mainly legal literature, but at home, I love to read historical books before bed. I actually dreamed of doing science, but my dad insisted I become a lawyer." "Someone had to take over when the time comes," Dorothy replied. "Do you like music?" Ross asked, deciding not to delve into personal questions, afraid to break the fragile thread of their confidential conversation and return to neutral topics. "I listen to it every day in the morning and evening, especially classical," Dorothy replied, happily picking up a familiar topic. Pizza was brought. They quickly had a meal and got back to work. They couldn't miss any important details. Ross noticed that he felt calm and at ease next to this woman. He occasionally gave her an interested look, but she didn't notice him and worked concentratedly. She didn't try to grab his attention or make an impression. Ross found out that Dorothy just didn't notice what he felt for her. Actually, he himself didn't fully understand what was happening to him. "I promised myself," Ross talked to himself by the fireplace at midnight, "that no woman would ever enter my heart again. It seems like I was wrong. I like Dorothy. I like looking at her, listening to her voice, seeing her work. What should I do with all this? How can I find out what she feels for me? I need to invite her to a restaurant," Ross decided, and, inspired by the idea, went to bed. The next day, he asked Liz to call Dorothy to his office. "What are you doing tonight?" The man puzzled his subordinate from the doorway. "Nothing special." Dorothy was taken aback. "Great," Ross was pleased. "Then I invite you to a restaurant. There will be live music." "Do you think it's convenient?" The woman hesitated. "You are my boss. I am your subordinate." "That's why I won't punish you for a workplace romance." Ross laughed, and Dorothy blushed. "Are you willing to spend the evening with me?" "Yes," she answered quietly. The evening turned out to be wonderful. They enjoyed each other's company, discussed the latest literature, argued about modern music, and listened to live music. "Dorothy, may I invite you to the dance floor?" Ross stood up and offered his hand. Dorothy accepted, and they moved to the rhythm of the music. Ross breathed in the scent of her perfume and enjoyed holding her warm hand. She seemed completely vulnerable to him, and he wanted to protect her from any troubles. Ross escorted Dorothy home, but she didn't invite him inside, and he didn't insist. He understood that she needed time. He himself didn't know what this woman meant to him. They started seeing each other after work and spent almost every day together. Oh my God, Ross pondered while sitting in his armchair by the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket. I think I'm in love with this woman. I'm ready to do anything for her, like a little boy, and I can't help myself. I can't keep quiet anymore. I want to know what she feels about me. What am I waiting for? He mused to himself. I'm not young anymore to hide my feelings for a long time. It's time to admit to myself that I want to marry her. But what if she refuses? The man hesitated. Then I'll just close this topic, but I won't forgive myself if my indecisiveness plays a cruel joke on me, and Dorothy falls in love with someone else. A woman needs clarity. The next day, Ross bought a ring, and for some reason, he decided it would be romantic to invite her for a weekend skiing trip. He booked a hotel room and went to talk to Dorothy. I don't want to seem too pushy, but I invite you to the ski resort this weekend. He laughed when he saw the confusion in Dorothy's eyes. Of course, I should have asked if you like skiing before booking the hotel room. I love skiing, the woman replied. It's just an unexpected offer. Ross couldn't wait for the weekend. The weather was perfect, and despite the light frost nipping at their cheeks, the young couple didn't notice it. They enjoyed each other's company. After skiing, they met at a restaurant. Thank you for bringing me out here. Blushing in the fresh air, Dorothy resembled a mischievous girl. Her eyes sparkled, and the smile did not leave her pretty face. Ross admired her. Dorothy, he was nervous, not sure how to start the conversation. Damn, I forgot how to give compliments to women. The man fell silent, choosing his words carefully, then suddenly blurted out, "Marry me." He pulled a ring from his pocket, took his chosen one's hand, and put it on her finger. I don't know how you'll react to my proposal, but I can't keep silent anymore. All day and night, I think only of you. I once swore to myself that no woman would touch my heart again. I had a difficult divorce. He suddenly noticed that Dorothy was crying. Trying to say everything he thought as quickly as possible, Ross did not notice how distraught the woman was. What's wrong with you? Did I offend you? He asked worriedly. It's not about you, Dorothy shook her head. It's about me. I can't accept your proposal. But why? Ross exclaimed so loudly that the visitors at the neighboring tables turned to look. Don't you like me? If you reject me, I'll understand. I have the most serious and pure intention. I won't do anything wrong to you. I'm not the person you think I am. I have nothing to my name. It's unlikely that your circle would like a woman who only recently lived in a trailer with the builders, hiding from the police and scavenging in dumpsters. Dorothy was afraid to look at Ross, afraid to see contempt in his eyes, but she could no longer remain silent. She liked him, so she did not want to mislead him. I'm a beggar. Everything I'm wearing I found in the trash. Some person left a garbage bag with women's clothes, and I sold some of the jewelry. The money helped me get back to a normal life. If I met a person who made me feel like a woman again, I would kiss him. This stranger saved me from certain death. Dorothy forced herself to look up at Ross and saw that he was smiling. She looked at him in amazement, not understanding what was happening. I've been wondering where you got my ex-wife's ring. I thought I was going crazy when I saw it on you, and I bought that dress for her in Milan. Now everything makes sense. You can kiss your savior, the man laughed. He's right in front of you. How? Dorothy gasped. This can't be happening. Oh, but it is. I've long suspected that you had some of my ex-wife's things, but I didn't ask. Although I was dying of curiosity. You know what? Ross raised his glass. Let's drink. I really want to know how you ended up on the street, but even more, I want to hear your answer to my proposal. In the subdued light of the restaurant, Dorothy looked even more charming than usual. Embarrassed by her confession, she waited for Ross to immediately get up and leave forever. But instead, the man continued the interrupted conversation as if nothing had happened. The woman didn't know how to behave. Dorothy, will you marry me? After everything you've heard about me, you still propose marriage, she asked. Of course, since then, I've learned to understand people. I know for sure that you are the person I want to spend the rest of my days with. I don't care if you're rich or poor. I love you for who you are. As for money, I have enough of it. What do you say? Ross looked expectantly at Dorothy. I agree, she whispered. Thank you. The man was delighted, grabbed her hand, and kissed her. He looked into his chosen one's gray eyes and saw the fiery spark of desire in them. He felt their hearts beating in unison. I was afraid you would reject me. After my wife's infidelity, I stopped trusting women, but you are completely different. On that day, throwing away my past, I never imagined that someone would save my life with my impulsive decision. Did you secretly laugh at me when you first saw me in your wife's clothes? No, Ross exclaimed fervently. I never even thought to laugh at you. On the contrary, I saw it as a sign of fate. Who knows, maybe we wouldn't have met under different circumstances. He paused. I understand it's difficult for you to talk about this, but I still want to know how you lost your father's business. Was he a wealthy man? Yes, Dorothy grew sad. Memories she had tried to forget for so long flitted back, bringing tears to her eyes. I upset you, I'm sorry, Ross said, looking at her anxiously. He held her hands, trying to comfort her. If it's too hard, don't say anything. No, Dorothy wiped her tears away. I need to talk about it. I've been alone for so long, it's hard to believe anyone is interested in my story. You're right, my father was rich. We had a house, a thriving business. Everything fell apart when my parents died in a car accident. My husband took advantage of my weakness and took everything from me. He left me on the street without anything in just my pajamas. So I had to choose between dying or giving up my pride and wearing someone else's clothes to survive. What a scoundrel, Ross exclaimed, feeling a deep anger towards the unknown man. Couldn't anything be done? Maybe there was, Dorothy chuckled bitterly, but who would listen to a homeless person's nonsense? I didn't even have a passport. He bought off people and planned everything meticulously. I couldn't have proven his fraudulence since I had given him the right to handle everything. So I decided to find a good job, eventually open my own company, and bankrupt all of his business. I must take revenge on him for his betrayal. He not only betrayed my trust, but also the memory of my parents. He doesn't deserve forgiveness for that. You know, Ross said thoughtfully, we have both experienced betrayal from our loved ones. My wife cheated on me with another man whom I considered almost like a relative, but I'm not going to seek revenge on the traitor. She's already been punished enough. But for you, I'll help restore justice. But that will be tomorrow. He looked cunningly at the woman. Right now, I can't wait to be alone with you. They returned to their room. That night was the most unforgettable and romantic night. Ross had already ordered champagne, fruit, and flowers. Everything was ready for their arrival. Even the candles were lit. Thank you, whispered Dorothy in her beloved's ear, cozying up in his embrace. I had already given up hope of ever finding happiness again. I also didn't expect fate to give me such a royal gift, Ross said, kissing her tenderly. I can't wait anymore. I dreamed of you from the very first moment we met. Let's not waste any time. I want to hold you in my arms and never let go. That night marked the beginning of their new life. They returned to the city completely changed. As they parked the car at Ross's building, he declared, I don't want to be apart from you. Move in with me. Okay, said Dorothy, but I need to pack my things. Will you wait for me? Just take your documents and the essentials. I won't allow you to wear any more of my ex-wife's clothes. They remind me of too much. I'll happily update your wardrobe. The woman smiled, kissed him as a sign of gratitude, and disappeared into the entrance. On Monday, they came to work as if nothing had happened, but their colleagues immediately noticed a change. Everyone was curious, but no one dared to gossip. Ross himself gathered the team in the conference room and announced, Friends, I want to share important news with you. Dorothy and I have decided to get married. Everyone present laughed, applauded, and rushed to congratulate the young couple. "I'm so happy for Ross." Lays shook Dorothy's hand energetically. "We were afraid that after his divorce, he might do something to himself. He was really upset about his wife's betrayal. You're not at all like Julia. I'm sure you'll be happy together." Dorothy was not expecting such support and became emotional, hugging the girl. She still couldn't believe that all the troubles were over. Ross invited everyone to the table, and champagne and light snacks appeared out of nowhere. "When is your wedding?" someone asked. "The wedding is already scheduled. We decided not to make it a grand celebration and will celebrate modestly," Ross replied. "Friends, don't forget about work. I'll leave you now." He approached his bride and said, "My dear, I have to go and take care of some matters. I'll be back soon." He kissed her on the cheek and left. Alone in the office, Ross called the head of security. "Morris, I have a request for you. We need to gather information about this man." He handed the man a photo of Dorothy's ex-husband and a folder with documents. "Find out everything you can about how he was able to take his wife's property without her consent." "Are you going to turn the information over to the police?" Morris asked. "No, all the materials will come to me first, and then we'll decide what to do with him." "Try not to delay the resolution of the issue," Ross replied. A few days later, the head of security reported back to Ross. "That guy wasn't a slouch. He enriched himself at his wife's expense. He just didn't expect to deal with real investigators. He thought he scared the woman, and that was the end of it. If she had wanted to, she could have exposed him easily. She couldn't. He even left her without a passport," Ross replied. "Scoundrel," Morris said harshly. He handed over all the documents to the boss. "I ordered a handwriting analysis of the divorce documents and found them to be fake. We found the will that Dorothy's father left behind. The documents she signed were cleverly crafted, but we found clues. Everything can be recovered with a good lawyer. Should we take this to court?" "No," Ross said. "We'll deal with him ourselves. Let's go see him first, but prepare the documents in Dorothy's name." The next day, they went to Mark's house after arranging a meeting. The unsuspecting man opened the door in his casual wear, which looked very much like Ross's pajamas. He walked around the house like a homeowner. "What did you want to discuss with me?" Mark asked. "Is this about business?" "Yes, business and this house," Ross replied. "What does that mean? I'm not selling the house." "I'm not going to buy it from you," the unexpected guest said, winking conspiratorially and smiling. The homeowner felt uneasy. "Explain what you want from me. I thought you had a business proposal." "Yes, that's correct," Ross said. Without waiting for an invitation, he sat down on the couch in the living room and placed the documents on the table. "I want you to look at this," he said, casually nudging the papers toward the bewildered man. "What is this?" Mark quickly scanned through one page, then the second. The two men watched as his expression slowly changed. What do you want from me?" "Nothing special," Ross calmly replied. "I want you to sign these documents immediately and leave the house." "You can't do this to me," the frightened Mark exclaimed. "I'm sure Dorothy said the same thing to you, but you showed her no mercy and simply threw her out on the street. I decided to be merciful solely out of respect for my future wife. I offer you a choice, the street or prison." "Who is your future wife?" the trembling man asked in fear of the inevitable punishment. "Dorothy, your ex-wife whom you betrayed," Ross said sternly, rising from the couch and extending his hand to Mark. "Sign or I'll call the police." "But can't you give me some time to gather myself?" Mark's hands, once confident in his impunity, were now trembling. He struggled with the pen before finally signing the documents and handing them over to Ross. "No," Ross answered firmly. "You will leave this house immediately, and neither I nor my wife want to hear anything more about you." "But," Mark tried to protest, pleading with the men. Morris moved towards him, and Mark scurried towards the exit, raising a threatening fist. "You think you can get away with this? You have no idea what I'm capable of or who I'm connected to. No one will want to have anything to do with you. Ross laughed. All your partners know how you obtained your business. That's it, he said, rubbing his hands together as the front door slammed shut. The traitor had been punished. Dorothy was avenged. Ross didn't tell his bride-to-be the details of Mark's exposure, but he handed over the documents right at the wedding. The woman was pleased with the unexpected gift, but after a little thought, she said sadly, I don't want to live in the house where my ex-husband was in charge. Ross happily granted his beloved wife's wish and organized the sale of the house. After the wedding, the newlyweds went on a long-awaited vacation, hoping for some time alone to rest from all the ups and downs. It was soon discovered that Dorothy was expecting their first child. The delighted husband announced that he would build their dream home, where they would finally find peace and family happiness.